Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Office Bloke Daz.
And I'm Office Bloke Max.
Here we are, just two of us today. Mike, busy at work. Mike is busy in the office. He's a proper office bloke today.
He is, yeah.
He's doing all the office stuff today, catching up. Music's most disturbing urban legends. Ooh. I know who they are. But
absolutely.
Should we just straight into it?
Let's get straight into it.
There are a ton of urban legends involving popular musicians, many of which can get really disturbing. Whether it be theories that Courtney Love killed Kurt Cobain, or that an artist literally sold his soul to the devil for success, they can get pretty crazy. So today we're going to be looking into some of the most disturbing music myths, starting off with Robert Johnson selling his soul to the devil. Robert Johnson is a legendary musician that allegedly sold his soul to the devil in exchange for his musical talents. But while his influential career is remembered by many, his short, strange life is still shrouded in mystery. Robert was born in Mississippi back in 1911, so he's pretty old. Early on, he took an interest in music. Growing up, he learned to play multiple instruments, including the harmonica. However, while Rob wanted to continue learning to play, his stepfather insisted he work in the sharecropping plantation field instead, which led to some pretty heavy conflict between the two. In search of freedom, at 19, Robert went off and started his own life, marrying a girl and getting her pregnant. But tragedy struck when she and the baby passed away during childbirth, leaving Robert with almost nothing and back where he started. On top of all of his personal difficulties early on, his life came just one generation after the abolition of slavery, so he had some pretty intense social factors working against him. When famous blues musicians performed at nearby venues, he attempted to get his foot in the door by playing guitar between the main act's set. However, the legend has it, at this point, he was so bad at guitar, he'd often get booed off stage, with some people allegedly saying, "Put that guitar down, you're driving people nuts." These early struggles led to Rob traveling around the South, and this part of his story is the one that's full of myths, rumors, and urban legends. Some people think he was searching for his real father, or maybe just trying to improve his musical skill. However, the most popular theory is that this is when he made his famous deal with the devil. Legend has it that late one day, Robert was walking a trail practicing his guitar when at midnight he approached a crossroads where the devil appeared. Here, the devil took his guitar, tuned it, played a song, and then gave it back to Rob. And as part of selling his soul in exchange for musical talent, Rob was also apparently doomed to an early death and eternal damnation in hell. This obviously sounds insane, but according to the rumors, he got crazy better at guitar after this happened. Just years after being booed off stage, he became one of the best guitarists of all time. So I guess you can get why some people believe this myth. When he returned home to some of the same venues he was previously booed and laughed out of, he was now instead begged to stay, with audience members in awe. Although while Rob clearly reached a new level, he didn't even start recording his music until 1936, when he finally got a record deal and recorded his first of nearly 30 total songs. Through this, he was able to get a solid amount of success and a following, but due to his music often containing themes associated with hell, the devil, and death, his dark image sort of hurt his progression. However, while his music was dark, lots of it came off as extremely relatable, especially to those struggling with similar problems that he went through. And in the genre of blues, this style flourished. For Robert, though, his career was cut short as he died the next year at the age of 27. The details surrounding his death are about as mysterious as his life was, with the official date in 1938 not being discovered till around 3 decades later when Robert's death certificate was found. What makes things more confusing is that on the certificate, no cause of death was found aside from some writing located on the back. This, of course, prompted more urban legends. A simple explanation was that he died from untreated syphilis, which was common at the time. Another theory is that Robert was murdered. Apparently, he was flirting with a married woman at one of his shows when the woman's husband offered him a drink. Robert's buddy first knocked the drink out of his hand, warning him about the dangers of it, but he ignored it and consumed the second poison drink offered to him by the husband. And a blues researcher even claimed to have tracked down and got a confession from the murderer. But these claims were also very sketchy and never actually cited the name of the alleged murderer, so we don't know if this is actually true. Regardless of how it happened, though,
he kind of went through a lot already by his wife and child dying.
That's
sort of thing.
It's a bit of a cornerstone in your life, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah, and especially a lot of musicians as well are sort of like very thoughtful, aren't they? Very sort of like, their heads all over the place sort of thing. So back in them days, obviously no medication for anything like we don't know what you've got now. You got access to nowadays.
Oh, 100%.
Sort of thing. So who knows?
Might have just gone mental.
He did end up dying relatively early and didn't reach the level of fame or respect in the genre that he has today until much later on in 1961. This was after they re-released his music under the album King of the Delta Blues Singers. This brought him an insane amount of posthumous popularity, since the album is considered by some as one of the greatest and most impactful albums of all time. So, while he likely didn't sell his soul to the devil, he did have a very short and impactful career. His legend is so big that aside from being just talked about, It's also been depicted more recently in major movies like Sinners, where the character Sammy is loosely based on Rob. And another thing you may have noticed is that Robert passed away at 27 years old, making him one of, if not the first, musician to join the 27 Club. The tragic phenomenon known as the 27 Club is basically an informal list of at first just musicians, and later including celebrities who all oddly died at the age of 27. The myth first began when in a span of just 2 years, Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Jim Morrison of The Doors all passed away. However, these deaths were attributed to different things like drowning, asphyxia due to drug use, drug overdose, and heart failure respectively. A major factor which tied them all together though was the fact that they passed away at 27 years old. This was
Never
the
knew
string of
this.
tragedies
Have you never
that
heard of
created
that
the
before?
myth, but it has continued to grow with notable artists and celebrities alike, including Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, Fredo Santana, and many more, passing away at 27. And the fact that Robert Johnson allegedly sold his soul to the devil and then passed away at 27 too, some theorize that that also is a part of the 27 Club. I don't know exactly what they think, but I guess it's like they sold their souls for brief success and then died. I don't know how exactly it's supposed to work. But a key feature, which often is seen, is the common influence of mental health and drug abuse on members of the list. Some claim that drug use and mental struggles can help in making good music. The end product doesn't always seem to be worth it. Some artists claim that it can help them as a pathway to recovery, but it's also important to ensure that the lifestyle associated doesn't bring you down. The 27 Club also has a lot of mentions in pop culture as well. The song 27 by Fall Out Boy references the club with lyrics describing the commonly dangerous lifestyle lived by rock and roll musicians. And
Thing with that, with the 27 Club and stuff like that, I mean, I don't need musicians. He's mentioned there, what, about 7 or 8?
Yeah.
Something like that. Well, there's like a 31 Club that you could pick up 20, 7 or 8 people who died at 31 or 33. I think you would. Maybe not as predominant as some of them.
I think it's because of the sort of between 3 years, 3 people died at the same time.
And
such big figures like Jimi Hendrix, Van Morrison.
Big names. Amy Winehouse.
I think
Cobain.
other genres artists alike. Mac Miller's song Brand Name features the line, "To everyone who sells me drugs, don't mix it with that bullshit. I'm hoping not to join the 27 Club." And in 2018, at the age of 26, he tragically passed away from a drug overdose after taking fentanyl-laced pills. Countless other songs mention the 27 Club as well, like JPEG Mafia's song The 27 Club, or Juice WRLD's line on Legends where he says, "What's the 27 Club? We ain't making it past 21," who tragically died the next year of an overdose at 21. And Frank Ocean's Nights, which discusses the white lighter part of the myth when he says, "No white lighters till I f my 28th up." The white lighter myth or curse is an urban legend often associated with the 27 Club. This is because it's claimed that several members of the club's list died in possession of a white lighter. This part of the myth is mainly based on the deaths of Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, and Kurt Cobain. However, these are mostly internet rumors since some of the artists definitely didn't have white lighters on them, and Bic didn't even produce a white disposable lighter until after 1973, which was after the deaths of some of those claimed to have had white lighters like Morrison, Hendrix, and Joplin. Anyways, back to the 27 Club.
It's mad how they spread, isn't it, rumors?
Big names died at the same age. The much more overwhelming similarities come from the drug use, the mental health problems, and the overall dangerous lifestyle choices lived by young famous musicians. Pressures, expectations, and the stress that comes with being super famous at a young age, for many who already had prior issues, in combination can lead to a tragic end. Of course, touring all the time and partying and traveling just can't be good for your health. So it's more likely that this is why the 27 Club exists rather than some weird satanic selling your soul to the devil just to die at 27 type of deal. Even statistically, you are not more likely to die at 27 than any other age. Instead, it seems that deaths at this age are overreported, further perpetuating the myth. So while the list does hold a mysterious aura around it, more realistically, the myth can be attributed to the many negatives that can come with fame. And speaking of Kurt Cobain, one of the biggest music-related urban legends ever is that he didn't actually take his own life, but was killed by his wife. In the early 90s, Nirvana grew in so much popularity that they were arguably one of the biggest groups in the world. Ironically, as an alt-rock band, they didn't really love this attention, especially since being a mainstream artist was a little against the whole counterculture thing. However, all of this somewhat unwanted pressure inevitably took its toll, worsening the already poor physical and mental health of Nirvana's lead singer, Kurt Cobain, which some believe eventually aided in his death. Official police reports have ruled that the young star took his own life, although to some fans, something felt off. And as a result, many decided to look deeper into the circumstances surrounding Kurt's death, creating theories of what they believe might have actually happened. Kurt had a lot of struggles as a kid, with a messy divorce from his parents, drug use early on, family members taking their own lives, and much more. He started his grunge band Nirvana in 1987 at just 20 years old. Making music began as a healthy pressure release for the stress Kurt felt throughout his young life. Eventually though, it ended up adding more as the band's popularity skyrocketed. Even with all this success, Kurt's problems remained and even worsened as he eventually started using heroin to cope with the new level of noise. At this point, Kurt's addiction felt almost irreversible. That was until he married Courtney Love back in 1992. But instead of a change for the better, things ended up only getting worse. Courtney allegedly began doing heroin with Kurt, and even despite having a child together, their destructive habits continued. And to make things worse, due to Kurt's drug use, Nirvana began to struggle as well. And in combination with his career struggles, Kurt's marriage with Courtney also started experiencing a rift, partly due to his growing out-of-control drug use. At one point, she was able to convince him to go to rehab. However, this sadly didn't work, with Kurt instead choosing to escape mid-program by climbing over the fence at LA's Exodus Rehab Center. Following this, he decided to go back to Seattle, which would tragically be his last flight. After arriving home, Kurt purchased a large amount of heroin along with shells for a Remington Model 11 shotgun, a weapon which was purchased earlier for Kurt by his friend, Dylan Carlson. Throughout these couple of days, some accounts spotted him throughout the city, once at a park and another time at a gun store. During this time, Courtney was desperately searching for her husband. She even hired a private detective in hopes of locating him. However, with all of these efforts searching for him, he still managed to evade being found. Then on April 5th of 1994, he finally returned home early in the morning. Kurt went to the greenhouse located above his garage. Here he drank a beer, injected a large amount of heroin, and tragically shot himself in the head with his shotgun. His body was found 3 days later on April 8th by an electrician who was there to install security lighting. Following Kurt Cobain's death, a plethora of conspiracy theories began to form. One of the main ones pushed by Nirvana fans is that Courtney Love was actually responsible for Kurt Cobain's death. Allegedly, her motive was to secure the inheritance that he left behind.
Bit far-fetched, that.
So here
3
are the
days
facts.
after it
Kurt was found with a 20-gauge shotgun that he had bought lying across his chest. A bunch of heroin was found in his blood. A box with needles and drugs was next to him, and a suicide note staked in a pile of potting soil near his body. After an investigation, the Seattle police ruled the scene as a suicide, which is totally understandable given the circumstances. I mean, Kurt Cobain even had a song called I Hate Myself and I Want to Die. So while there are a bunch of reasons to why it's likely that his death was a suicide, the theories that blame Courtney do have some interesting evidence as well. A big speculation was that right before Kurt's death, he was in the process of trying to divorce Courtney and write her out of his will. Allegedly, this didn't go through in time, and once he died, theorists say she received an estimated $150 million. Again, this is alleged, but this is what some people say. Another point of contention revolves around the suicide note. Handwriting specialists analyzed the note and believe that the last part may not have been written by Kurt. However, allegedly, since the note was faxed and didn't have the same color, it was hard to be sure. But what makes things even weirder is in transcriptions of the note, many theorists claim everything before the last portion could be taken simply as career retirement. Of course, though, this is very subjective. To add on, the wording in the final section came below Kurt's signature, which is pretty weird considering it was the only part that mentioned his family. So of course, the reason theorists point all this out is to say that Courtney actually wrote this note or added on to it. Multiple other people who analyzed the note came to the conclusion that aside from the handwriting itself, a different linguistic style appeared to be used as well. However, many other experts dispute these theories, claiming that the differences are not compelling enough to make a definitive decision. However, things get even weirder, because after his death...
Yeah, but if you're smashed out your tree on heroin,
I
imagine a lot of the way you write, or, you know, it's, I know when I write, my handwriting, you can't read anymore. But sometimes when I'm writing, you can read it, I write in capitals, crystal clear. Sort of thing. But, you know, if someone says to me, can you just write that down? Sometimes writing, you have no idea what it says.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also if you think, oh, I'm going to kill myself, you're going to have the sort of emotional waves of like, oh, maybe, I actually love my family. And despite all the rage in that, there you go, fucking hell, I need to actually speak to my family at the end. That'll be it.
Yeah, attach that onto it.
Tom Grant, the investigator hired by Courtney, began to suspect her in the mysterious death. Tom even eventually released a documentary titled Soaked in Bleach, where he dove deeper into the case. During this film, he uses real audio recordings of him and Courtney talking, some of which she didn't even know were being taped. In these recordings, she says a few odd things, including filing Kurt's missing persons report under his mother's name and not her own, burning notes from Kurt that talked about divorce, changing her story, and several other things. She also talks about being angry with Kurt since he turned down a $9 million contract to headline Lollapalooza. Many of these recorded conversations, specifically the ones where she's lying, are used heavily in the theories claiming Courtney had a part in his death. However, while pushed by a lot of theorists case, many of Grant's claims in the documentary have been shot down and refuted, even by the police. Another thing that theorists point to is Kurt's drug box. When police arrived, apparently all of his supplies were placed back into the box, which is a bit of an odd organizational move considering he just shot up heroin. But that isn't the biggest part. Lots of theorists think a major red flag is that a toxicology report stated that he had 1.52 milligrams of heroin per liter of blood in his body, and that would have killed him instantly. Most serious heroin users only take about 60 milligrams, which would equate to 0.42 milligrams of heroin per liter of blood in the body, which means that Kurt's level would have exceeded 200 milligrams injected in total, meaning that he would have been probably out cold. Statistically, this amount of heroin would have been 70 times the lethal dose for the average person and 3 times the lethal dose for even the most addicted heroin user. However, this narrative is a common misunderstanding from theorists that comes from a misinterpretation of the toxicology report. The toxicology referred to his TML, total morphine level, and not his FML, free morphine level. This does not measure dosage, it refers to all metabolites in the bloodstream, including the ones that stay active for hours after shooting up and increase in the bloodstream with multiple injections over time. People have been pulled walking, talking, and even driving on higher total levels than Kurt had. This is also meaningless in attributing a cause of death, and is just an indication of what he'd been doing in the build-up to it. In the end, Courtney was never put on trial, and the case was only ever reopened in 2014, but nothing came of it. And honestly, the facts are debated with a ton of other details I could have included to make a whole dedicated video, so if you're interested in the whole deeper story, let me know in the comments below, but it's likely that Courtney was not actually responsible. And what's even less likely is that one song was responsible for multiple people taking their own lives. Gloomy Sunday is a Hungarian song released in the 1930s.
What happened to her, Courtney Love?
I think she just knocked about. Still waiting. She's still a celebrity, but she's just kind of known for that.
Is she still alive?
Yeah. Yes. If not, she might have passed away in the last 5 years or so.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought she had.
Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, I thought she passed away a few years
I remember
back.
hearing her name a while back.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah. But she kind of disappeared into. And then I thought she passed away.
Which has been rumored to make people commit suicide. The song has allegedly been tied to hundreds of deaths, and while a song can't make you kill yourself, the myth does have a very interesting and dark backstory with some shocking coincidences. Gloomy Sunday was first composed by a Hungarian Jewish composer named Reso Seres, I think that's how you say it, in the early 1930s. Leading up to the song's creation, Reso and his girlfriend moved to Paris so he could further pursue his dreams of making music. However, he didn't really find any success, and after his girlfriend's parents begged him to get a job, she finally decided to leave him, so he was having a tough time. Allegedly, the day after she left, which was a Sunday, he decided to make this song. And with the help of a friend who was a poet, he created the first version of Gloomy Sunday, which was called Somru Vasnarap. I don't even know what that's supposed to say, or how you say that, so I'm just gonna give up. The lyrics are direct references to suicide, which follow losing the love of his life. They read, "Gloomy is Sunday, with shadows I spend it all. My heart and I have decided to end it all. Soon there'll be candles and prayers that are sad, I know. Let them not weep. Let them know that I'm glad to go." Although this is the English translation, so it's not the exact same original lyrics, it clearly encapsulates the type of energy. Along with this, the song also came at a time when Hitler rose to power and another world war was looming. So along with heartbreak, it also represented the fear many European citizens felt. Ironically though, the song, which was created because of his lacking success, ended up becoming a success of its own after a popular Hungarian artist recorded it. Following this, not only was it a hit in Hungary, but also across a large portion of Europe. And the song's success didn't stop there. It grew so popular that it was re-recorded by a bunch of other artists, including one of the most well-known English versions by Billie Holiday in 1941. Despite all of his success though, he was unable to get his girlfriend back. And what made things even worse is that a multiple of suicides began being reported in connection to the relatable, sorrow-filled song. Whether it was a note left behind that quoted lyrics from the song or pieces of sheet music being held by those who took their own life, eerie connections started popping up left and right. During World War II, it got to the point where the song was even banned by the BBC in England until 2002. Wow. And while there were a ton of examples similar to these, maybe the most unsettling was when Reso later attempted to find his lost love. He discovered she had also committed suicide herself, allegedly only leaving 2 words in her note, Gloomy Sunday, which is actually a crazy turn.
Thing is, though, if you think about what was going on then during World War II, it wasn't a great place to be in Europe.
No,
mainland Europe like that. It's,
places.
Places like that, yeah. So I imagine it could have been like, I don't know, almost like
it's like a rallying call for it.
Like a funeral sort of song, if you want.
Yeah, exactly.
This is it. I'm coming to the end. This is my song, sort of thing.
Of events. Reso is quoted saying, "I've become the suicide singer. I'm devastated that this has become the song's fate. At this price, I don't need success. But the tragic story doesn't even stop there. During World War II, Resso endured 4 years in a forced labor camp and an 8-year ban on his music by the communists. And years after the end of World War II and Resso's music career, he also fell to the same fate as others connected to the song, and he passed away at the age of 68. And because of all these tragic connections and factors in the story, Gloomy Sunday has been labeled the Hungarian suicide song. However, like I mentioned earlier, it's pretty much impossible to blame a song for making people take their own lives, as most people were almost definitely struggling with severe mental health problems already. So it's more likely Gloomy Sunday may have embodied the sorrow that people felt and even triggered overwhelming emotions, which is why its presence was found on so many scenes. It's unlikely that Gloomy Sunday is actually responsible for the deaths of multiple people. However, its tragic lyrics may have had some sort of small inspiration with listeners. If you like this video, you might like my video about music myths that turned out to be true. It's pretty much just what the title says. But yeah.
Yeah, I like this channel.
Yeah,
it's
good.
Yeah, some interesting stuff there. Gloomy Sunday, I just think I'd put that down to like a World War II.
Yeah, 100%.
So like a issue of everything that was gloomy about World War II.
The global state of gloominess.
Really, yeah, like I say, the Eastern Europe them days as well, where it was probably the worst place to live on the planet.
Oh, 100%.
You know, like I say, I'm gonna have to Google Courtney Love as well. She passed away. Yeah, so I'm only about 90%.
Unless it was like Kurt's anniversary and then the name pop back up again, maybe that could be it. But
yeah,
because it's been like what, nearly 30 years now, if not 30 years.
But that's, what was it, the 27 Club?
Yeah,
I've not heard of that. It's new to me.
Yeah, I was aware of that and the White Lighter thing, but the White Lighter thing was it's
obviously a myth, isn't it?
Yeah,
because obviously Bic never produced it until 73 or whatever it was, or whatever year it was.
It's one of those you bring up when you're pretty leathered and go like, yeah, but it's a talking point. That's it.
A lot of them are talking points.
They're all talking points. Yeah.
It spread like wildfire though sometimes.
100%, especially the internet.
Enjoyed that though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hope you guys did as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.
Cheers.
Cheers.